Hey guys, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Very sick today. Uh, it's snowing in Oklahoma. We have a winter weather warning. Started as a watch, turned into a warning. It's a mess here. So daughter and I still not feeling very well. Husband is going to have to stay at work because the roads are supposed to be so bad in the morning that he wouldn't be able to get from here in the middle of nowhere to there. So, yeah, quite a day. Steve is watching his soap opera, so maybe he'll be quiet. And the dogs are in the house because of the weather. So you may hear my footless rooster Steve yell in the background, and you may hear my dogs as they walk around and eat and drink and do what they do. So today I want to talk about questions that we are kind of left with after the probable cause. We're sort of in a lull with the Idaho 4 case right now, just waiting for the next court date. And the gag order was made even stronger. So all of the information that seems to be leaking out, we really need to kind of take with a grain of salt, right? There was a woman calling in to another YouTube show, and she said that she was the mother of a student at WSU who I guess knew some of the Idaho 4. And she was given, all this information. And to me, I tried to watch the show. I couldn't really stick with it, but I listened to what she was saying. And she was kind of here, there, and everywhere with her story, right? And then at one point she's like, oh, well, my daughter said this, but then she changed it to that. And we had to call the cops because, the story wasn't right and all this stuff. And people were really jumping on that story. And, on my channel, I don't normally pounce on something when it first comes out because I want to feel it out and see how believable it is and if it gets debunked. And apparently this has, because now this woman's interviews, phone calls, whatever, are starting to disappear off of YouTube. It's not really out there anymore. And then we had the whole thing with the Mad Greek. Now, initially, I had wondered, even before we had a suspect, if this killer could have come across Maddie and Xana through work. They were waitresses at the Mad Greek, and could that be possibly a place that a customer saw them and got fixated on them, what have you. And then a report came out. Someone that allegedly worked there said that they remembered Bryan coming in to the restaurant on at least 2 occasions and getting their vegetarian pizza. And the reason he stood out to them was because he wanted to make sure that nothing on his pizza or nothing it was made with had touched any kind of animal product, which fits with what we've heard about him wanting his family to get new pots and pans that had never cooked meat and things like that. Well, then the Mad Greek owner came out and said he hadn't been there. And I don't know that it's a big deal if he had or hadn't been, really. This was kind of, in my mind, much ado about nothing. Yes, it kind of explains, that, yeah, he may have interacted with them or what have you. But if he wasn't there, he wasn't there. I mean, I don't know why it was such a huge thing. I don't know if the owner of the Mad Greek is just, she doesn't want her restaurant associated with BK or what, but to me, it's neither here nor there. It doesn't, like I said, it would clear up the question, like, had he interacted with them or whatever. It might have, but it might not have. And if he was spending time in Moscow, it would make sense that he probably would get food there, because there's a lot of vegan restaurants in Pullman where he lived. But if he's in Moscow and you Google vegan restaurants, Mad Greek comes up first. I'm not sure why, because most of what they serve is like beef and lamb, your normal Greek menu, but they do have that vegetarian or vegan pizza, sorry. So I don't know, but the rumor mill is really in overdrive right now. And when you hear things, just kind of take it in and consider it and see how it plays out before, you really buy into it full force, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Nevertheless, like I said, the PCA, it did leave us with quite a few questions. And some of those questions, I feel, are going to need to be answered at trial. Now, of course, we all understand that the PCA was the bare minimum of information that they needed to get him arrested. So you would think and hope that there's much more evidence that they have against him. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. We hope that there's a lot more concrete evidence out there that really kind of just puts the nail in the coffin, right? Because if he's the guy, we need to make sure that he is put away. If he's the guy, we don't want a bunch of circumstantial evidence to lead to a loophole for his defense to jump through, and then this guy gets out of it. So there are certain things that we need more information on, or that we want more information on. And I feel like if I'm thinking it and you're thinking it, potential jurors are going to want to hear the same things that we want to hear, right? When I put out my post yesterday, I said, what questions do you have that would need to be answered to make this make sense? And that's pretty much what they're going to have to do with a jury. They're going to have to make it make sense to a jury, right? So this is what we have come up with. I used your questions, my questions. I'm going to play this walkthrough video just to kind of refresh us, especially like his movements in the house and Dylan's. So let's take a look at this real quick and then we'll dive in.
In the beginning, most of us believed the two surviving roommates, Bethany and Dylan, were sleeping on the first floor. Since then, we've learned Dylan was sleeping here on the second floor, along with Xana and Ethan, located here. Kaylee and Madison were located here on the third floor. The dog was located on the third floor, and the room by itself. Let's move around and see through the walls, into the kitchen, to the back slider, and take a look at the time frames. At 4:04 a.m., the suspect can be seen trying to park his car. At 4:09, approximately 5 minutes later, he enters the house through the back slider. At 4:18, he leaves the house after committing the crimes. At 4:20, he's caught on camera driving away at a high rate of speed. All of this only took 9 minutes. Let's watch what that looks like. The suspect enters through the back sliding door. He pauses at the stairs to look around to make sure no one's up. He then turns and goes upstairs. The first bedroom he stops at and opens the door, he sees no one there. He continues to the next bedroom. Here we know what happens. Downstairs, Dylan is sleeping. The noise from upstairs wakes her up. She thinks it's Kaylee playing with her dog. She gets up and goes to the door and looks out. She sees nothing there. The suspect then continues down the stairs about 3 minutes later. He then heads to Xana's room. Outside, there's a security camera picking up some whimpering, cries, and a thud at 4:17. We've learned that Xana was found on the floor, which might explain the thud. Dylan again hears something and looks outside her door. She sees the suspect. He walks right past her and leaves.
All right. So now we remember what was going on. So the first thing that they're going to need to do for a lot of people is make the connection. And I've got the 4 victims' pictures on one side and then the nothing burger on the other. And I really think it's going to be important for them to establish this just for why them, why those 4. If they want to say that he's the one in the Elantra that was around in their area at least 12 times, then we want to know why, right? Like, where did he cross paths with them and which ones? Did he get fixated on Maddie or Xana or both through the Mad Greek? Did he see one of them at the grocery store? Did he have some unpleasant interaction with Ethan that he took the wrong way? Did excuse me, did he see Kaylee out at a bar? You know, things like that. Where was the initial he saw them and decided that they are the ones? Because if we look back at his history, he has been bullied and rejected continually, like the bulk of his life, right? But he never did this to anyone before, so why them? What about them pushed him to the point that, you know, he had to do what he did when he hadn't acted like this in the past when he was rejected? And like I said, I think that's going to be something people are going to want to see, because if it was random, then why was Dylan spared? And Bethany, now Bethany, you know, her being in the basement, if he comes in on the second floor, I can almost see Bethany being spared just by location, right? But he walks right by Dylan's door 3 times. Wants to go upstairs, wants to go downstairs, and then wants to leave. And he never checked in that room. So there has to be a reason. You know, there has to be a reason that he went upstairs to Maddie and Kaylee. Maybe he was looking for one of them. He wasn't expecting both of them, but they were both there, so they were both taken out. And then why come back downstairs again, not going into Dylan's room and doing anything to Dylan, but continuing on through the house to Xana's room? And again, maybe he didn't expect Ethan there, but Ethan was there and is just a victim of circumstance, wrong place, wrong time. as a juror, I would want to know why those 4 and not the other 2. I think it's important. When did this start? How did it start? Just the why. And it kind of leads into the question of motive, right? You need more than just the connection. And prosecutors do not have to prove motive. They don't. They don't have to tell you why. But if they can, it definitely helps. I think juries really like to know the why of a situation. I know I do. It makes things a little easier to kind of wrap your mind around if you can see the why. And like I said, he's been, bullied and rejected from a very young age when he was in Pennsylvania throughout, primary school, college, etc. Not one person has really come out to say they had a significant relationship with him. The one girl came out and said that she had gone on a date with him and that he was acting kind of bizarre. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But, he had been dealing with that and not acting out. He never attacked anyone, hurt anyone that had bullied him or rejected him in some way before. And another question for me is, all of his schooling was in Pennsylvania until he was ready to get his doctorate. So why all of a sudden did he decide it was finally time to leave Pennsylvania? He had been there close to this family this whole time, and was maybe that what was keeping his rage in check? I don't know. But it seems if he's our guy, he moved out to Washington to get his doctorate, and the semester started like August 22nd, I believe. And that is pretty much the same time that the Elantra is seen starting to frequent the area of 1122 King Road. So that's interesting that if he did this, is it because he was kind of away from, not really the control, but like the eyes of his family? Did he finally feel like he could act on something that he had been dealing with most of his life? I don't know. But like I said, I feel like they're going to need to make some connection. Now, it was said that he was messaging at least one of the victims on Instagram, and she hadn't responded, and then he just kept messaging her, and nothing significant, just kind of like, hey, how are you, kind of thing. But which one was it? And is that it? But how did he find her? Just scrolling through social media? Like how did he happen upon these particular 4? I think is something that would be really helpful for a jury to know and be able to understand a little bit better how this even got set into motion. And then we've got Bethany, right? And I really want to hear her account. In the PCA, it heavily fell on Dylan's account. The only major mention of Bethany was that she had seen Xana and Ethan at the Sigma Chi party that night. But she's also in the house, and did she hear anything? She may not have seen anything like Dylan did, but if Dylan's hearing all these noises and they're waking her up, did Bethany hear anything? I feel like we don't hear about Bethany really at all. And in the PCA, there was nothing of her account. You know, it didn't really say like she slept through it. Nothing. Right? So I would just like to know, and it kind of goes back to Dylan again, because, you know, we all have all these questions about Dylan, right? So did Dylan wait in her room for Bethany to wake up the next day at noon? I mean, I don't think they both just magically woke up at the same time. So did Bethany wake up and go upstairs and find the victims and then go to Dylan's room, and that's when they exited the house and the whole 911 thing took place? You know, was Dylan staying in her room and Beth waiting for Bethany to get up, and then Bethany found them? Or did Dylan wake up and she walks out and she finds them and she freaks out, so she goes downstairs to alert Bethany and they leave? These are all things that I would like to know, like what order did everything happen? Who saw what when, you know, and why that long delay, right? So in the PCA, one thing that stuck out to me, and I was, you know, like, it's just semantics, it's just a word, right? But I can't let it go. And it's the word originally. So it says DM stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. So to me, when I wrote this down, what does that mean? The opposite of originally is finally, ultimately, or lastly. So something follows, right? Something follows originally. So did she start out there and end up somewhere else? Let me read it again. DM stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Originally. DM stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Gonsalves playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the third floor. A short time later, DM said she heard who she thought was Gonsalves say something to the effect of "there's someone here." A review of records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could have also been Kernodle, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. And all of that is fine, but it's the originally. Is this just like a poorly chosen word? I mean, why didn't they just say DM stated she went to sleep in her bedroom? Why the originally? And I just keep going back to that. And it may just be semantics. It might be. But, you know, I have to wonder that we've got the time gap, right? That she was in this frozen shock phase. And I'm just using these times approximate. Well, the 4:18 is approximate and 11:58 is when the 911 call was made. But let's say she saw him exiting the house at 4:18. This time is when she's in her frozen shock phase, right? If she left her room at some point after the frozen shock phase, did she not see anything? Why would she switch rooms anyway? I mean, if she's scared and she wants to go to somebody else's room, why not go to Xana's room that's on the same floor? Or turn and go upstairs to where, you know, Maddie and Kaylee are. Why would she leave and go all the way downstairs with Bethany? So I wonder about that. But if she was scared and frozen, but she got brave enough at some point to leave her room to finally end up going to sleep somewhere else. Did she not check on anyone? And if she had, why wasn't 911 called then? You know, the time gap, I would like that to be filled in. And hopefully at trial it will be. Hopefully at trial it will be. I've done the video before about Dylan, and I'm not trying to place any blame on this girl. You know, I am not saying she's involved in any way. That's not what I'm saying. Could she have been absolutely frozen, terrified, I don't know, hiding under her bed that whole time? Sure, I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not Dylan. I don't know how she reacted. I don't know how I would react. But I would like some of that time gap to be filled in for me. Of why such a delay? And not just the delay, but when she finally makes the call, or Bethany makes the call, whichever one of them makes the call, they called friends over first, not 911. Now we know 911 was called at 11:58. What time were the friends called over? We don't know what time the friends were called. So how long were the friends there before somebody finally decides to call 911? But if she was really that scared, and like her first instinct is to call her friends, how come she didn't call her friends that night when she was so scared? I don't know. I have questions. And what scared her so badly? And this, I almost feel like it's an unfair question. You know, because like I said, I'm not Dylan, you're not Dylan. We know nothing of her personality, her backstory, what she's dealt with in her life, you know, things like that. And that all colors our perception of situations, right? Things that you've gone through affect how you view things that you're going to go through. So what scared her so badly? And the reason that I asked that is this is a house where people are coming and going on the regular. It's been described as a party house. Now, granted, that night, it doesn't appear that there was like a party going on or anything like that. It seems like it was just them. But at the same time, hang on, I need to turn my heating pad on. Would it be really out of the norm, so unusual for a person to be in the house? And the reason I say that is we have all the calls from Maddie and Kaylee to Jack D. And if she was asking Jack D to come over, and Jack D had come over, and Dylan opened the door, and let's say Jack D had on a ski mask or whatever, would she have been that scared? Because why I say ski mask is we've seen pictures, several pictures of people in that house wearing ski masks, right? And it's winter in Idaho, and it's cold. And when she described seeing the Nothing Burger, she said that he had on a mask that was covering his nose and his mouth. And that could have been one of those gaiters that you kind of wear around your neck and you pull it up and it covers, or whatever, or like a COVID style mask. But I don't know why on this night she was so scared, I guess is what I'm getting at. You know, she got up, she was asleep. She heard the noises from upstairs that she thought was Kaylee playing with Murphy. And she gets up and she looks out the door and she doesn't see anything. So she closes the door and she goes back to bed. And then she hears, you know, what she thinks is crying. and a man saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She looks out, she doesn't see anything, she goes back in, she closes the door, she hears something else, she gets up, opens the door, and Nothing Burger's walking by. Now, why on this night did she keep getting up and going to the door and opening the door and looking and then going back to bed? Is this normal for her? Does she get up and open the door every single time that she hears a sound in the house? Maybe she does. Maybe this isn't unusual behavior. But I'm just wondering on that night, like, what would, if you hear your roommate upstairs playing with the dog, what about that would prompt you to get up and open the door and look? You know, she's lived there. Kaylee's had the dog. This is probably a sound you've heard before. Was it especially loud? You know, was there something different about it that prompted you to get up and open the door? And one thing that it's semantics again, but she gets up, she opens the door, she looks, she doesn't see anything, she goes back to bed. The only time they say that she locked the door was after seeing Nothing Burger. So when she heard these other noises, and it got her attention enough to get up and open the door and look out and see if she can see anybody, was she not locking the door when she went back at those times? Did she only just lock the door after seeing the Nothing Burger? And again, it could be semantics, but you know, the devil is in the details, right? You need the details. So let's see. Okay, so what about him? Scared her so bad. Like I said, we've seen people in the house with masks on. There's people coming and going, and she may or may not know every single person that comes and goes through that house, right? And it's 4 a.m. She's been sleeping, you know. Would it be really that out of the ordinary to look out and not recognize this person that's walking by? I'm sure that, you know, you open your door and there's somebody right there. Of course, you're going to be like, oh, geez, you know. And she was close enough that she was able to see the bushy eyebrows. So it sounds like he was, you know, right there. And when we've looked at pictures of the house, you can see that, yeah, you have to walk right by her door to go through the kitchen and out the slider. But what about him was so scary? Like, seeing a guy walking by, how do you know he hadn't just come to visit somebody, drop something off? Because we know Xana got that DoorDash at 4, so people are still awake in the house, right? How do you know it wasn't like, you know, one of Ethan's frat brothers or somebody that brought something, and instead of going down and out the front door, they're just going to go out the back door? Or maybe somebody's over there visiting and they're going out back to have a smoke. I don't know. I mean, what about him walking by towards the slider was so out of the norm that it was that scary? I can see, like, being startled that somebody's like right outside your door, but to go into a almost 8-hour frozen shock phase, what was it? And that makes me wonder, did she see blood on him? Did she see the knife? Or did he say something to her? Because all of those things, that changes the whole dynamic. You know, of course it's not going to be normal to see a guy walking by with a bloody knife, or a guy walking by that's got blood on him. Or if he said something to her, like, get back in there, or I'm going to do to you what I did to them kind of thing, or get back in there and don't call anybody kind of thing, then yeah, that makes sense. But hopefully in the trial, we'll get more of that. You know, what was it that terrified her so bad on that particular night that she wasn't able to call 911 for so long? And let's see. Kind of gone over the whole motive thing, which really, I think, ties in heavily with the connection. I think the connection of the victims and the motive are kind of going to go hand in hand. Now, like I said, it could be something as simple as he saw them somewhere. Maybe he approached them, said hi, whatever, and they blew him off, not meaning to be rude, but he took it that way. And this time he just did what he did. I don't know, but I feel like if we find out where they crossed paths, it might lead us a little more down the road to motive. Somebody asked why Kaylee and Maddie were in the same bed. Now, we don't know that, right? A lot of people had assumed Kaylee was moving out. She had been moving out her stuff. She had been selling furniture off kind of like piece by piece. And some people were saying she didn't have a bed there. And that would make sense. But early on, her dad, Steve Gonsalves, did an interview, and he was talking about when we got the pictures where they were outside, and you could kind of see in the windows, that he was able to see that Kaylee's bed was there and it was made, and that's kind of how he knew they were together initially, because her bed was made. Now, if her bed was there and her bed was made, I don't know why they were in the same bed, unless that's just something they regularly did as best friends, as sisters. Maybe they were talking and they just fell asleep there. I don't know. I've also wondered if Dylan, thinking that she heard Kaylee and Murphy playing, was Kaylee maybe in her room and she was playing with Murphy before going to bed, and when the Nothing Burger came up there, he kind of put the two girls together and put Murphy in the room by himself. He didn't want to deal with the dog, and maybe it was just easier for him to have control of the both of them in one area. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever really know why they were in the same bed. Let's see, some of your other questions. Time frame. And this is a big one too. A lot of people are having a hard time with the time frame. So at 4:04, the car is seen coming in and trying to park. At 4:17, we hear the whimper and the thud from the security camera next to Xana's room. And at 4:20, the car is seen speeding away from the area. So if you factor in, okay, he's got to park and then walk, run, whatever, and enter the house, do what he did, exit the house, get back to the car, it leaves you with about 10 minutes, give or take, right? Because seeing him at 4:04 doesn't put him going in the house at 4:04. They see the car then. He's in the car. He's not going in the house at 4:04. And they see the car leaving at 4:20. Well, obviously he had to leave before 4:20 to make his way back to the car. So that's where the time frame comes from. And people are like, 4 people in 10 minutes is really fast. And it is. It's fast. It would have been very frenzied, very chaotic, I'm sure. Could it be done? Probably. But there is a lot of movement in here, right? He has to walk in the house and he has to go up the stairs. And that's actually another one of my questions is, so Dylan hears Kaylee and Murphy upstairs. She hears Xana and Ethan across the house. He walks by her room 2 times before she sees him. Once going up, once going down, and then the third time she sees him leaving. Those 2 times that he was right there and going up the stairs and coming down the stairs, she didn't hear anything. I mean, yeah, he could be quiet, but I mean, 10 minutes. He's in a rush, right? And yeah, you can move quickly and quietly, but I just wonder how she didn't hear him go up or down the stairs. I don't know. But anyway, getting off track there. It could be 10 minutes. It doesn't sound long, but what I kind of always go back to is, I don't know if you watched the Travis Alexander Jodi Arias trial. And what the prosecutor did there was he had a timer set for the amount of time that her attack on Travis lasted. And everyone sat there just still and quiet for that amount of time. And try it for yourself. Set yourself a timer on your phone or whatever for 10 minutes and sit there. Don't have the TV on or anything. Just sit there in the quiet. Don't do anything. Don't talk, nothing for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a lot longer than you think when you do that. It really is. I mean, I know we say time flies, and it does. Sometimes it does fly. And it probably flew that night for him because of the chaotic frenzy that was happening. But when you sit quietly with no distraction, no nothing, just in the quiet for 10 minutes, it's longer than you think. So, is it possible? Yeah, it's definitely possible. It seems outrageous, especially if this is his first time, right? Just because, he's coming in, he's going up, he's coming down, he's walking across the house, he's walking back across the house, he's walking out. I mean, it's a lot, right? But some people seem to think that maybe he was already in the house, and when we see all the crazy things with this car coming and going and circling and trying to park and backing up and all of that somebody had driven him there, dropped him off. He was laying in wait in the house, and then this was his getaway driver, and they're just kind of like circling around and what have you, waiting for him to come out after whatever. Did they know he was going to murder people? I don't know. But everything in me, from everything I've read and seen about him, I feel like he probably did it alone, that he wouldn't have a partner. And part of that is he had only been there such a short time. And it sounds like he didn't make friends easily. And the ones that he had that have talk about him being kind of odd and whatever. And you would have to build up an immense amount of trust in someone else to be a part of something like this. And that's why everybody thinks the guy, Bryan Kohberger, that was killed by SWAT at WSU shortly after all of this occurred, is the one that he was working with. And I'm going to do a video about that whole thing. I don't think so. I think somehow he did manage to do this in a very short amount of time. And hopefully the prosecution will be able to kind of give us an idea of what happened when and what have you. But try that. Like I said, sit for 10 minutes in the quiet and you'll see it's longer than you think. Now, the shoe print. So they said they found a latent shoe print outside of Dylan's door, and that kind of confirmed her story of seeing him right outside her door, and it showed his direction of travel towards the slider. Okay, that's fine. But my thing is, again, we have to go back to this house is frequented by a lot of people And Vans are a really popular shoe. You know, my son has Vans, my daughter has Vans. I mean, they're a very popular shoe. So, what is it about this shoe print? You know, was there blood in the print? Because a latent print, to me, is one that you don't necessarily see with the naked eye. You know, you add something to it and it brings it out for you. You know, kind of like fingerprint powder or whatever. So, what is it about that shoe print that they're so sure it was his and not, I don't know, Dylan's boyfriend or something? So, you'd have to compare the size, obviously. Does the size match the size that Nothing Burger wears? I won't say that. He may have kept the shoes. I doubt it. But if they found the shoes at his apartment, then obviously that would be a big connection. If there's blood in the shoe print, then that proves it's the killer's, most likely, because he is tracking blood as he walks, right? Or is it one of these friends that they called over before 911 that could have got blood on their shoe? You know what I'm saying? You got to kind of look at all sides. And was it only one? Only one shoe print? Not two shoe prints. Only one. And if so, how come the print is right there, but we don't have any prints going out or going in or anywhere else? I feel like there has to be more than one, right? There has to be. And maybe they only mention this latent shoe print outside of her door to do what I said, to verify and corroborate her story, that he walked right by her. And the proximity of the shoe print to her door is going to be what they can hang their hat on and say he was that close. So yes, she was able to get a good look at him. I don't know. But I would like to hear about maybe more shoe prints in the trial, where they were found, things like that. You know, did you find some on the stairs in the room with Maddie and Kaylee and Xana and Ethan's room and they all match, something like that. And then one of the biggest things that I feel like I need to know, I need them to place him in the house on that night. Now, we have the sheath, right? We have the sheath, and it's got his DNA. Okay. But is that enough? Is that enough to convince a jury that he was there? Again, most of what we've read in the PCA is circumstantial, right? So they're going to have to go further. And, Dylan saw him and his bushy eyebrows, which, if you notice, if you go back, if you look at his pictures, a lot of his pictures, he does have very bushy eyebrows. But the last time he was in court, they seemed a lot thinner. And I'm wondering if his lawyer has, taken care of the eyebrow situation for him. But they need to have more. Let's say, okay, we've got the sheath. He wears this size shoe. He owns Vans. He's got bushy eyebrows. I feel like as a juror, I want more. Is there any of his blood in the house? Is there maybe some of his hair on one of the victims? Like maybe she yanked some of his hair out, or it just falls out, We all shed hair. Steve sheds feathers every day. So I want something. And I'm going to put this up here. So this is him, right? This is the Nothing Burger. Did one of his sesame seeds fall off? Now, what do I mean by that? Like a skin cell. We shed hair, we shed skin cells, sweat, blood, lots of bodily fluids, and can they place him there that way? Is his DNA, like his skin cells, under one of the victim's fingernails? Something that can't be explained away by some stupid excuse that the defense tries to come up with. If his DNA is under multiple victims' fingernails, then definitely, right? If he injured himself, if he cut himself, if Ethan hit him in the nose and gave him a bloody nose, if there's a drop of his blood in that house, that would be big. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of ways that his DNA could be there. Like I said, one of his hair, maybe it fell out. It's laying on or near a victim. Maybe it's in one of their hands. His skin cells under their nails. Some sort of bodily fluid that can only be traced back to him. Something that places him and nobody else in that house. Something that cannot be gotten out of, because the defense is going to be like, well, there's a lot of people that wear Vans shoes in a size 10 or whatever, right? And we've all heard everybody saying, oh, well, maybe someone else had that knife and he happened to touch the sheath and it's touched DNA from a long time ago, or maybe he let somebody borrow his knife, or people are already trying to spin ways that the knife sheath doesn't place them there. So they need something more, right? So hopefully they've got a lot of really strong evidence, and I feel like they probably do. Like I said, we hear the gremlins in the background. We have to remember that the PCA was the bare minimum. The bare minimum needed to say, this is our guy and this is why, and we need to arrest him now. So there's more. There has to be more, and I think they've got it. I hope they've got it. But these are just a few of the questions that I had, that y'all had, that you sent to me, that I thought we would go over. And if there's anything else that you think is going to have to be answered for this to be a very solid case, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. So give this a thumbs up, please, and get it out there in the algorithm. If you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe and come join this amazing community that we're building here. Share it on your social media, and that's really all I can ask of you. Subscribing and liking are completely free ways to help support me, my channel, and what I do here for you guys. So everybody, take it easy, take care, stay safe if you're dealing with bad weather like we are. And as always, I will see you all in the next one.